leasing agents or our rental people have to be licensed. That's ludicrous. You work over here, you're licensed in this building, and you can't go show the property across the street. Forget it. All you can do is open the door and stand there. No way. That doesn't happen today, so let's not even try to think it does. Let's just not make it a license. Let's make them have to work under somebody that is licensed, and maybe it's a simple agreement, things like that. So that was one of the changes we asked for right away.
All right, folks, welcome to another conversation of For Rent, Conversations to Better the Rental Industry. I'm your host, Mackenzie Wilson. Today is a very special guest, someone I have been following up for a few months here to get on the show. Well deserved. She very much fits the narrative of what this show and podcast is all about, which is conversations to better the rental industry. I have the executive director of the Alberta Residential Landlords Association, also known as ARLA, Donna Monkhouse. And Donna Monkhouse is also one of the few go-to resource experts in the industry when the mainstream media wants a request. So very knowledgeable, really a great person to have. And I'm really excited to have this conversation today, as I'm going to probably be learning as much as you will, as I get to ask Donna some questions about the history of the Alberta rental market here in Alberta. So Donna, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Mackenzie. It's nice to be here.
This is, we've talked lots to take it to this point, so I appreciate you spending some time and getting prepped and organized for this show to just kind of share the wealth of knowledge that you do have, and really a lot you do with the Alberta Residential Landlords Association as well. It's a great organization, so I'll pump up your tires a little bit, but where do you want to take the show? Like this, there's a lot going on, and for folks, when you're listening right now, we're just off the heels of the Alberta election here in 2023. Only a day or so ago, we have re-elected a UCP majority government. So I thought it'd be quite fitting to pick the knowledge and the experience of Donna and to kind of talk about how we've gotten here and how this industry has evolved over the last little while.
So currently right now, I am the executive director of the Alberta Residential Landlord Association, ARLA, in acronym form. We've been around since 1994, and ARLA was formed in 1994 because there was issues with the government and different landlord issues. So in order for the government to listen to ARLA or listen to the landlords, we needed to be more than just one person. We needed to be a few. So ARLA has 4 founders that founded this back in 94, and it grew from there. So membership started coming in with professional members or your landlord members and service members to assist those landlord members with what they needed to do. And ARLA grew from there today. So we've had our 25-year celebration, and hopefully we have our 50-year celebration one day soon. So we are a not-for-profit, membership-based association. We educate, advocate, unite landlords and service providers. So we help all landlords of all sizes, because I've always said whether you have 1 unit or you have 5,000 units, you have the same problems. It doesn't change. So that's the first one. Yes. Yeah. I always say that. I get more calls from little landlords who go, help, help, than I do, well, large end landlords call too, but small ones more so than that.
Fair enough. And it is really an industry of where folks that have 1 or 2 rentals, the small landlords, probably do this on the side. They have a day job. And I hopefully say they don't learn trial by fire, but that's probably a lot of the conversations you might have.
Yeah, I get a lot of that conversation. I have people that call and need help and advice. Now, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not legal, so what you get from me is experience. I've been in the industry for, I don't even want to say 40 plus years, but there you go. And so a lot of it's based on my experiences. So it's not legal, it's just some helpful advice, but it's sometimes it's good advice. Yeah. So they will come in here with piles of paper, they're stuck as high and go, I need help. And so they join as a member, we help them out, and then they start attending events and having fun with us too, because we have a great community of membership.
Okay, cool. Well, let's take it from there. So I'm just going to ask questions from my general curiosity of how we've gotten to where we are now with legislation here in Alberta that governs our rental industry. So the RTA, the Residential Tenancy Act, I noticed on all the paperwork that I read, says 2006. So that was the last time. And I'm trying to remember the words that...
Patricia,
thank you. They haven't had a material change since 2006, meaning a big revision of the act. So from your experience prior to this legislation coming in 2006, what were the differences to after this legislation came to? Like, what were some big things that got addressed that we didn't have in place that makes us better off now?
We were actually a huge part of that. We used to be called the Edmonton Apartment Association back in 1994. So when we started, we were the Edmonton Apartment Association. So the original current Residential Tenancies Act was from 1980.
Hmm.
So it was the first one. It was 1980. So interestingly enough, I started in the industry in 82. So people were still not that familiar with the RTA. So it was kind of interesting, right? So
Ah,
some of the things you did maybe weren't up to par or towards the RTA. There was no RTDRS, which the new act called for. That was one of the changes. So the RTDRS was something we wanted in place for mediation and for orders, because going to court was just day and night. It was a complex issue. You had to go to court, you had to stand there, plead your case. It was like a long day, and you sat there all day. So
mhm.
the RTDRS coming into place was one of the changes that was made. In 2000, when they started reviewing this, thinking that this is really old, it was amended again from 1980 and 1992. And in 2000, it came back that it needed revisiting again. Now, the new one didn't come out, 2006. So it took that many years to get all those changes put into place and in order. It was pretty cool.
So sorry, when did that conversation first start to get to 2000?
2000,
Oh,
2000, 2000,
6 years,
Service
6 years of
Alberta. Yeah.
conversation. Wow, I did not know
So
that.
yes, it came into place because it was a dramatic increase in calls to the Alberta Government Services consumer complaint line in regards to the closure of the Calgary LTAB. So Calgary Landlord Tenant Advisory Board shut down in 2002. And so everything started
And that
happening after that.
was that not for profit, private, government? What was
That was
that?
government. That was your city of Calgary,
Okay.
and they would help landlords and tenants.
Hmm.
So then there started a flood of calls into the Alberta government. So interestingly enough, Edmonton just shut down their landlord tenant advisory board 2 years ago now.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, they would give out all kinds of things as well. So now people start calling us. It still exists. Tenant support landlord. It's not landlord tenant advisory board anymore. It's tenant support services.
Yeah, they focus on the tenants
So
in the conversation.
yeah, yeah, which was which is needed.
Yep.
Because tenants need to be educated just as much as landlords do, in my eyes,
We're
right?
both stakeholders in a process, equally involved in interest, right? So,
Yeah,
so what was the switch, or why did these two groups get shut down, or shut down in Calgary and changed in Edmonton? Is it just from a cost perspective, perhaps? That was maybe
I
the
think
reason.
it was largely cost
Hmm.
effective. So I actually sat on the challenge board with the city of Edmonton for Landlord Tenant Advisory Board. So I was part of that committee, whether it's, just answering questions, what happens, where it goes to. When you have so many entities, like there's Service Alberta was giving out information, Landlord Advisory Board was giving out information, you had all the housing groups that were giving out information. There was just too much information coming out of different places. That
That
was one
probably
thing.
weren't perfectly aligned, and maybe a little bit misinformation here and there.
Well, you got to ask a lot of questions. So, and a great example is landlords will call in here saying, my tenant broke his lease agreement. Well, there's more questions you need to ask to get to that point. Was it a month to month lease agreement? Was it a period? So you have to ask a lot of questions. Sometimes those people get so busy, they don't ask all the questions. You need to give them the right answer. If somebody
Yeah.
just calls and says, oh, I want to break my lease, how do I do that? Oh, you just give your landlord 30 days. Well, was it a fixed term lease? Was it this? Was it
Exactly.
this? So
Yeah.
you need to be aligned on everything, right? Yeah. The other thing with the city of Edmonton was that when I looked at the revenue versus expenses, and everybody can see that it's on their website, it was they were spending 800,000 and they were making 70,000. So financially, it was a
Well,
good move. It was a great move for Edmonton to make that move. So that's where that one came from. So I was happy. Our form sales are I love our forms.
yep.
They're all done by lawyers and reviewed, so they're great, and by us as well.
Yep.
So I was happy with that one.
Yeah. Oh, and before we go on, I got a couple of thoughts here, but just for the listeners that are listening and that are not from Alberta, RTDRS is our lower form tribunal. It's informal. The whole point of it is to get speedy access that's affordable, that you can self-represent for minor issues and dispute resolution between landlords and tenants.
Yeah.
Our equivalent of in Ontario would be the Landlord Tenant Board.
Yeah. So here it's our Residential Tenancy Dispute Resolution Services. They are just like the law. They're just like the courts. What they say goes, and so much easier now. So
very much so.
It's just much easier. And you know what they've been getting after reading what happens in Ontario versus here. I'm glad I'm here.
Oh,
really glad I'm here.
I don't even know if I'd be in the business, to be truthful with you. When I did my research to come in, I've said this a few times, but we'll say it again here. When the lights are on and no one complains until the lights go off, And RTDRS has done a fantastic job of giving timely justice, which is really important because in the business where you've got thousands of dollars of expenses per month, if one side is not getting paid or another side is not getting minimum housing standards that they can call place to call home, and they're forced to live through that, you need timely access to remedy those situations. And they just hired a bunch more TDO officers, tenancy officers. I think I don't know what the current turnaround was. Last I looked at it, it was within less than a business week. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was 5 to 7 days to get a hearing for possession of your unit. So it's awesome. You know what? And they're so understanding. I actually sit on the Alberta Residential Tenancy Advisory Committee, the RTAC committee.
Cool.
So I chair that one. Don't even go how I became chair. So somebody left, and that was it. Donna, you're appointed. I sit on that.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Kind of like that. And it's just, we talk about the RTDRS, because Patricia sits there, Service Alberta sits in there, other associations sit in there, Canadian Public Legal Education sits in there. So you know what, you have a great group of people that sit in there that have some advice, and we hope sometimes our stuff gets to the minister. And so
Yes.
we have worked on some red tape reductions right now for the current RTA, because there's some things that could change that we'd like to see change for the landlord in favor of both parties. You kind of have to stay fair. So that's what we tried to make it. And they were on hold till after the election. So now I'll jump on that one again to see where that one goes. So that's one of the things we're working on with that.
This is exciting. So let me dive into the desires of Donna Monkhouse to make things better for the world of RTA. What things are you thinking about putting on the plate for improvement to our current RTA?
To shorten the timelines, like some of these timelines for when how long a tenant can come back to get a security deposit refund, that needs to be shortened. I think that's extremely long right now. I'd have to look at all my items, but that was one of them. The move in, move out process needs to be a bit streamlined with timing, so that tenants can't just say this and this.
Consuming.
Yeah, the abandonment one needs to be more clarified. That causes great confusion with people. The fact that we need to get a bailiff to lock out a tenant after we have a judgment and an order, that's a costly endeavor. There's some things out there that we're trying to look at. So we'll do the best we can, and we'll work at what we can, and go from there. But maybe, just maybe, there will be a revisit of the RTA now that the UCP is back in place. We don't know. It'll take years. Trust me, it'll take years. The last one did, but it'll be good.
That'd be excellent. Yeah, with some stable government in place to make some beneficial changes for all. So
yes.
Okay. Wow, I didn't know it took that long. That's super interesting. So does this RTAC group that you're a part of, do you guys meet regularly, or is it like ad hoc, or how does that work for you?
Twice a year. Twice a year we meet, and we just discuss things that are coming up and things that are happening, just to keep things informed. So just to hope the minister gets our stuff. That's all. Yeah. So we sit there. We're a good group of people, and
I'd love to be a fly on the wall and just hang out with you guys. I really would.
Well, if some of your people are from Calgary, Jerry from CRRA sits on the committee as well. So we go back and forth quite a bit. So yes, you got some good people on that committee. So
that's good to hear. Cool. So we brought in this legislation. It took 6 years, from 2000 to 2006, when it got put into place. And I know there was another steering committee, and I don't remember the name, but this was the committee that is now the RTDRS, this lower, more informal tribunal process. I think you were part of that as well. I'm taking a guess.
I was part of the Edmonton Apartment Association documentation, so I sat on that one to affect changes to the RTA. So some of those changes were, and I have it actually because I keep everything. I am a keeper of the world. So if you ever need a document from 1980, just call me. I have everything here.
I probably will.
We did a landlord is entitled to enter tenant premises without consent, without notice, or if there's an emergency. That was never the case before, so that's one. We were always able to enter on only Monday to Friday between, I think it was 8:30 to 4:30, which didn't work all the time, so that was fun. Termination of tenancy for damage and assault came into play. It was reduced to 24 hours from 48 hours. So that was one, because even at 48 hours, you still had to go to court most of the time to get a judgment. So you rented 2 or 4 days anyhow. So it made sense to shorten it so we could go to court faster. So there was the notices to vacate for fixed term leases. You had to give notice. You had to give 60 days notice back then. So that's gone now. You don't have to give any notice now on a fixed term tenancy agreement. Those were some of the changes. There was pages and pages and pages. It landed out where it is today.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know. So previous you had to give us a 2-month notice
Yeah.
to end a fixed term. And so what
Yeah.
happened if we didn't give notice back then? Would it just continue?
Do you know what? I really can't remember ever having one.
That's fair. Fair question.
I really can't remember ever having one. You know that back then, a lot of it. Nowadays, there's more education towards it. We offer a ton of education on the RTA, things like that. Many times, I get even property managers going, "I've never looked at the RTA," which is the case with a lot of people. They
Yeah.
don't know all the rules that really exist. Like we run the course online. We run a webinar 4 times a year on RTA fundamentals, just so you learn how to navigate the Residential Tenancy Act and the ministerial orders. But people don't always do that. And I'm going to share with you, back then when I was there, I didn't pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
I never really paid much attention to it. So it's good to have the education now.
Yeah. I mean, as it should be, it's a highly regulated industry because we provide housing, which comes back to the basic need of shelter, and as it should. But yeah, a lot of people get into it out of necessity, depending on both sides, what we're looking at, whether you're a renter or a landlord. And then until they really get in trouble is probably the first time when they look at it, which
exactly.
isn't practice.
When somebody comes in and says, I need help, I've said, well, did you go through the Residential Tenancy Act? If they say the what, I know right away I'm in trouble. And I sit them down and I try educating and I go from everything, because that's my goal now. My goal now is to make everybody aware that there's a Residential Tenancies Act, there's a Real Estate Council of Alberta, there's all these entities that you need to be part of. And you just need to make sure you are following the rules and the regulations. So it's not unusual for people to say, I don't know what the RTA is. It really isn't. It blows my mind every time.
Well, that's an interesting one too. I remember being at one of your seminars earlier this year in person. We had it's RECA, right? Real Estate
Doug
Council
Dixon.
of Alberta, and I think they're also undergoing a big review of the Real Estate Act.
Yeah.
And one of the big key things that a lot of landlords need to be aware of, especially if they're looking at outsourcing property management, is individuals have to be licensed. And if someone's going to manage a property, they have to have a beneficial interest of a certain percentage.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you are and that's the interesting. So condo licensing just came into place. So if you are a condo owner and your condo board is being managed, your condo manager better be licensed now, because that's what they need to be following all the authorities out there and the rules. So that was one. If they're not, you need to move on. There are other places that are licensed now. But most people want a real estate license in the multifamily. You want to have a real estate license for property management. If you're managing a portfolio, let's per se Boardwalk. Boardwalk owns everything they have, so you don't need a real estate license, but you still have to follow RECA rules, security deposit trust funds, all of those things. So it's interesting. So you really need to watch what you're doing out there, and you need to be aware of these things. So they all have some great information on them if you don't know anything, and there's great education. I got my real estate license back in, I don't even want to go, hang on, I got to think hard. I have my certified property manager, which I got in 1994, which was awesome. I still carry that. So that was a great course. And then my real estate license, I think I got in 90 or 2002. I worked for Boardwalk, and Sam asked me if I would get my real estate license because we were doing some sales with Boardwalk, and it helped. You know what? It just made more sense for us here as well. So I carried the license for Boardwalk here in Edmonton for a while.
Oh, cool.
And Sam was the broker. I was just a little agent. I could sign leases. That was what I could do.
Okay.
So, but it was good. But back then you had to go to class. I had to sit in this class for like 8 hours a day for 10 days. Now it's all online and you're done. No farts. No fair anymore. No fair.
I got a funny side story on that. I am so part of my role here at Single Key is on the education and content side. So I'm taking a RTA class for Ontario out of George Brown College, and I thought for some reason I signed up it was like 3 to 4 hours, like an accelerated short little program. No, it's the full gamut. It's a whole semester, 3 hours every Thursday for 3 months, with a final exam at the end of July. And so I haven't done school in a while, and it's a long time commitment. And it's eye opening nonetheless. Hearing how they go through their process and what we have, it's night and day different. Which is again why it's so important. If you're out of province anywhere looking in another province, it's provincially regulated. So please, please, please be familiar with the local provincial level legislation. But yeah, anyways, just I thought I signed up for something that'd been like, a weekend, like what you guys do with your RTA class, get in and get a good crash course foundation of it. Oh no, I got 3 hours for 3 months every week. Oh.
You know what? Nothing wrong with that, especially in Ontario. You know what? There's nothing wrong with that. I have friends there that have properties, and they'll call here and go, I just want to be there, Donna. I just want to be in Alberta. And it's like, I can't help you from here. A lady from BC called me just before I got on here, and she has a property, two or three properties in BC, and I'm like, I can't even help you on that. I don't even want to start to understand their forms and what they do. But
that's next on my to-do list.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. That'll be a fun one too. So the places that have rent controls are one of the biggest ones. They have the most complex systems, the most forms, things like that.
Yeah.
I get people calling here wanting an L9. I go, what's an L9, right?
Yeah,
No idea. Somewhere in BC or Ontario, there's an L9, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Totally.
So we have fun with that.
Yeah. Well, in going back to where I was kind of digging with the RECA and being, getting a little bit more busier and now knowing what I know now, I'm comfortable. I would love the ability to outsource some more of the mundane tasks of being a landlord. I could hire, a high school summer student, for example, to perhaps do my inspections, or someone to manage viewings if I'm out of province or out of not local at the time. But currently, the way that the system's set up, you have to be licensed to do those key activities. I would just hint, prevent a word out there if perhaps they can provide some way to still protect the unknowing landlords, because that's critically important. At the same time, a way for the ones that are more experienced to have that flexibility to man the properties appropriately.
Well, that is actually, it's interesting you do that, because we just did a paper up. We were invited to a consulting session with RECA. So myself and 5 of our members came on board, and we gave suggestions to some of the changes that could be made. That was one of them right there. You just hit it on the nose. That was actually number one, came out first out of all their mouths right away. Why do our leasing agents or our rental people have to be licensed? That's ludicrous. You work over here, you're licensed in this building, and you can't go show the property across the street. Forget it. All you can do is open the door and stand there. No way. That doesn't happen today, so let's not even try to think it does. Let's just not make it a license. Let's make them have to work under somebody that is licensed, and maybe it's a simple agreement, things like that. So that was one of the changes we asked for right away. The other one we kind of put on the plate was about a structured licensing process.
Okay.
So many property managers now need to be licensed. Everybody wants your real estate license to work in the industry. You need your real estate license. You need your property management or your condo degree or condo in there, right? So you need that. And commercial is another one too. So commercial people have talked about only wanting to be commercial licensed. Well, that's not going to work, because a lot of the multifamily are also mixed use. They have commercial and residential. So you don't want to carry 2 licenses. That's just a lot of money. It's a lot of waste of money. You don't want to do that. So we want that one to stay together. If you need your license to do that, it would be nice, because somebody new coming into the industry doesn't have their license right away. So they're not going to put out all that money to get a license and then hope they get a job. If they don't get a job within a specified time period, then they can't, their license is lost, because they can't put their hat anywhere under a broker.
Yeah.
So, well, what I'd like to see is like a graduated licensing system where you take the basic, and then you get a job, and then you pay and you move into the other aspects.
So similar to trades like plumbing or electrical.
Exactly.
You do your 1-year apprenticeship, you then get your industry experience, come back, and it's a really complementary system that they can financially make it work, because they're getting paid to do their job and learn on the job. Why not do the same in our licensing in the real estate side?
Well, and a lot of us older people or more senior are leaving the industry. We're leaving the industry. Yeah, I'll go for it. We're leaving the industry, right? So your mentorships, your guidance, your people in that are leaving. So we got to help these young people come in. I know MacEwan University has a great program. They do a property manager minor degree right now, which is great.
Hmm.
Widener Investments, one of our members, actually, they invested a lot of money in that course to help people coming into the industry get that degree and get into the industry. We need people to be educated
Yes.
and coming into this with education. So it's important. Walking into this job, I don't know. When I got into this job, I had no idea what I was getting into.
Oh, tell me about it. Me too.
Yeah, but you walk into something and you go, "What did I just get into?" And I developed a passion. I became passionate for this. The people, the buildings, the different
Mhm.
things you see, and I managed so many different projects along my lifetime. I managed an airplane hangar
Oh, cool.
in the municipal airport, an airplane hangar that it was a receivership, and I took it over as a receivership. And my boss calls me and goes, "How many planes can we fit in there, Donna, to park overnight?" And I went, "What?"
I have
That
no
was
clue. Yeah, yeah.
but I
Oh,
learned. I learned all of that.
that is
I got
super cool. Yeah.
yeah, so things like that. But I've been chased around buildings by men with dogs and people with dogs because I'm delivering notices of takeover. It was like, oh yeah. So there's been
Wow.
some things in the industry, right?
Yeah,
You asked earlier about evolving in the industry. I got to tell you,
please.
one thing that evolved huge in this industry is technology. Technology pushed us so far ahead to be so, and everything evolved. But I remember starting when I was typing financial statements.
Oh, wow.
And when I got my first fax machine, I thought I was in heaven. Even
Yeah.
little curly paper didn't drive me as crazy. But so just the technology and where we've come to sign leases online and doing inspections over the phone or meetings over the phone and or online and things like that. It's huge. It has evolved this industry so far in what they can do and where they can manage from. Big
Mhm.
time. It's
Yeah,
good.
no, that's super cool. Totally. Well, so let's help some of the perhaps newer folks and less experienced. What are some common pitfalls that you get called on? Or if someone sat down with beside you the first time and you know they're a brand new landlord, what's the most important things you want to tell them, Donna?
Most of the time, it's like between fixed term leases and periodic tenancies. The difference. What's the difference between a fixed term and a periodic? So a fixed term starts on a certain date and ends on a certain date, right? Make sure that if you have that power. I like a fixed term lease for that reason. If you're keeping the property and you're not planning on selling it, that's the best thing to do is do a fixed term lease agreement. At least you keep that tenant for a year. If they break the lease, you have compensation. There's recoveries you can get. But if they turn out not to be the best tenant in the world, you don't have to renew that lease agreement. On a month-to-month tenancy, you better document. You better make sure you have all your ducks in a row. And if they don't pay rent, head to court right away. Please don't sit on that. Don't listen to the sob story. Don't listen to that. They're not sob stories, but if they haven't paid rent, issue a 14-day. If rent's paid before the 14-day is up, then you drop it. You have the rent. But if they're not paying rent on time, make sure they understand what's going to happen if they don't pay rent on time. I have one lady came in here about 2 weeks ago. Her tenant owes her 6 months.
Ooh.
She loves her tenant. She's being kind. You can only be kind so much until your mortgage payment needs to be made.
Mhm.
So maybe don't do that.
Mhm.
That's one of the biggest ones I get. The other one is to understand what a 90-day is or a 3 consecutive tenancy month. Okay, you can't give it to a tenant on a month-to-month tenancy to get out unless you're demolishing the premises, unless you're moving
You
in
have a call.
yourself.
And it's prescribed right in the law.
It's all prescribed in law. Understand your eviction notices. You can't just give a certain eviction for a certain for anything you want. Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't like you. You can't give a 90-day because I don't like you. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
And watch your P's and Q's. Watch the Privacy Act. Watch the Human Rights Act. Make sure you're following those authorities.
Mhm.
Make sure you're doing the right thing. And then I make them take our courses. So we have an online Street Smarts course. It talks about the RTA. Online members and non-members alike can take it. It's just the basics. It's not anything fancy, but it walks you through the basics of what you need to know.
Perfect.
Last thing I tell them all the time is do a move in and do a move out. Do a signed lease agreement. Always do a condition report. Always. If you don't know, if you don't tell them what the unit was like before, You can't tell them what it's like after and try to get money for it. Do your proper paperwork.
Yeah. Totally.
Always. Big things to remember.
Love it. I love it. Yeah. And those are like, you just labeled out probably a half dozen set of pro tips there. Fixed terms over month to month, critical in Alberta. It's the opposite in Ontario. So folks, we're talking about Alberta here. This is why it's important. Documentation's always so critical. Just, I always say is whatever you're communicating, whether you do it via text, email, or phone, layer in a phone call with a text and an email follow-up. And then it gets very hard to dispute when the individuals receive the communication in three different ways.
Yeah. I always tell them to post on the door, send them a picture of it if that's all you have, and email it to them. As much as you can get it to them, right? Yeah. So you have to do that. Have to.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's exciting. I'm just trying to think here. We're coming up to the end of the hour here, and
I can tell you funny. So in 1982, when I started, when was the first cell phone come out? 1986. I got the first cell phone.
Mid to late 80s, I believe.
Okay, well, I had the first cell phone. The big gray one that hung out of your purse.
So did my dad.
You couldn't put it in your pocket and everything like that. I was so proud of that cell phone.
It came with a briefcase.
I had a carrier for it.
Yeah.
And then I plugged it in, and I would just, it was so exciting to have that phone. Couldn't do anything else. You couldn't play games on it. You couldn't do your banking on it. You couldn't do anything. So that phone number is the same phone number I have today.
Wow.
That phone number has never changed. And so when I called to get loyalty from my provider, I've been a loyal customer for a long time with this cell phone, right?
Yeah.
They wouldn't give me one. So I moved providers. It was kind of like, wow. And then I get a call from them asking me, come back and they'll give me a better deal. And I'm like, it's too late now. But interestingly enough, when somebody has that old phone number, should be treated a little bit better, I thought.
Yeah.
But I still get calls today from people that I managed back in 99 and 2000. Donna, is that you? Oh, yeah, it's me, right? So they find me. So I managed a bunch of condos, and they find me all the time. I'm like, nope, not doing your condos. Nope.
Oh man, that's cool. It is like one thing I want to kind of just relate with you. And same here. I got into the business for personal needs of providing a financial future for my family, but I quickly learned, and I really, really enjoyed how rewarding it was when someone was proud to call your rental their home. And that was such a rewarding feeling. And it's just been a eye-opening and really enjoyable experience to it's a mutually beneficial relationship. It's not a fight, unfortunately, as much as perhaps it gets propagated out there and what it's shown as, but we need each other and just finding ways to make that relationship work better through education and the efforts that you do, Donna. Quite thrilled to be supporting that. It's all for a better future. And it's surprising. Like it's just, it sounds on the surface when you first get in, like, oh, broken toilets and unhappy tenants and this and that. And it's really way more than that. And the squeaky wheel gets the oil. A lot of people, you hear the worst of the worst. 9 out of 10 landlords and tenants just want a good, healthy relationship. Someone pays the rent, someone fixes the dryer.
Yeah, you know what? But you're right. It's right. All landlords aren't bad people. Most of us are awesome people. We'll take care of our tenants. If something's broken, our landlords will fix it. You know what? Not all landlords are bad people. We always hear about the bad landlords out there, through the years. But there are good landlords out there. There's some good landlords out there. The other important thing I forgot to mention too was always do a credit check and a reference check on your tenant.
Yeah.
Before you rent to somebody, make sure you do your checks and make sure you're bringing in a good tenant.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, that's like, that was my MO before I even came to Single Key, and thank you for that plug there, Donna. But
you're welcome.
We're in a position where you have an asset. It's likely for most mom and pop landlords, myself included, the most expensive thing I own. I have to give complete control to a stranger I've never met before, and do it in a small time period while they're trying to make their move to wherever they're moving next. How do I build that trust quickly, right? It's just the more informed you can be to make that decision, the better. And why not have the same information that banks and car dealerships have been using for a long time? So it's a welcome addition to the industry. And And something you brought up too, like landlords, you can be nice in this industry and like help a tenant out and stuff. Like I'm all for that. But I found the approach that's really helped me over the years was, especially when I first got into it, and I had some really, really interesting viewings I've done. And I've heard all the stories too. And it's like, well, I've just met you. I've known you for 10 minutes and I'm sorry that you're in this position. But the reason I'm in this property is because I've got 2 kids I want to put through college or whatever it might be. And when you think of your why and why you're doing this, and then you look at the challenge, the emotional plea in front of you, and if you can take that a second to balance and think about that, the decision becomes pretty easy. I mean, I'm going to value my children. I want to put them first, and this is why we're doing it. We're not a charity. We provide a great resource of rental housing supply providers in the industry, but I think it's an emotional trap that really gets a lot of people burnt when they don't make that distinction.
It's your business. It's a business, and you have to treat it like a business. But it doesn't mean you don't have mutual respect for both places. That's what has to happen. Just mutual respect, and then it'll be fine. You know what? It's nice to educate landlords, and we get a lot of tenant calls too. I just forward them on to Tenant Support Services, Service Alberta. And I remember one call I got here from a tenant. Sometimes you can just feel the distress in somebody's voice. And so I stopped for a minute, and I stopped and I stepped back and I listened to him. I listened to him go on for 25 minutes because I felt in my heart he just needed that.
You heard.
And so I listened to him, and when it was done, I said to him, "So what are you going to do now?" And he says, "I just want to thank you for listening to me. I just wanted somebody to listen to me." And I said, "Well, I'm glad I helped you today, but you need to call somebody else now for your legal side of that." He says, "I think I'm okay now." And so, you know what? Sometimes just listen to your tenants. Sometimes that's all they need.
Communication, so important.
Absolutely.
Yep. A cornerstone for sure for me as well.
I used to say that all the time. Just because they might think they don't have a leak, they might have a leak. Just go look anyhow. It doesn't hurt.
Exactly. Well, let's wrap it up here. Donna, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. If folks are interested in becoming a member of ARLA, how can they find you?
www.albertalandlord.org, O-R-G, or give a call to the office. Kelsey and I are always here, 780-413-9773. We do a lot of great things, though. We do seminars, webinars, luncheons, golf tournaments, trade shows, barbecue. Our barbecue's coming up. We do networking sessions. We do a jingle and mingle at Christmas time. Perfect. So we do a lot of fun things. So come on board.
Yep. Yeah, get involved with like-minded folks. It will really help you out. I think I have to have you come back again, Donna, if you don't mind.
Well, I got piles of stuff to tell you, so you just better, because I have so much in this hand.
Perfect.
But, I'm going to do a podcast too. I'm planning a podcast with my daughter, but ours is going to be more amusing and fun because she's been with me since I started in the industry, and so she was at more fires when she was 2 than anybody I know. So she used to have to come with me all the time, right? So
that would be a super interesting perspective.
Yeah, we go back and forth and we banter. Yeah, she used to take me on. I used to take her with me when I do tours of my properties at night to see if all the outside lights were working.
Yeah,
right? Because I wanted to make sure it was safe and everything like that. So she took the back seat and yacked away to me, and I just think, it's fun. So she's been with me a long time. So we're going to try this bantering back and forth. Sometimes it's fun.
Well, let me know when it's out. I'm in.
I will, because you're going to be one of our guests.
Oh, I would love to. Please. Absolutely. Awesome.